Our first day on the road with Power Tour has come to a close. Daniel and Brittany and I all have memberships to Planet Fitness, and we're just basically using their parking lot and their showers, bathroom facilities. So it's pretty cool. We're sitting out in the parking lot now. Got a cigar, got a bottle of beer down there. The dogs are chilling. So, yeah, driving impressions of the Biscuit. I'm not that big a fan of it. Not sure. I don't know. The tires are bias plies. They're trailer tires basically because they're 16 and a halves. So they sat for a long time, and because they sat, they're now square. So I'm hoping that 1,100 miles knocks the corners off of them. I'm not expecting it to. I'm also not sure I want to spend $1,000 on new tires for this thing, so we'll see what happens. Be really good for a local around town stuff, which fits my current living situation. Take it up the road to the state parks, that kind of thing. I don't know, we'll see. It smooths real well, or it smoothed out real nice. We readjusted the timing again because it had some detonation issues. It was spark knocking really bad. And then that was pretty much it. It's quiet. It's a lot quieter than it was before. I shouldn't be shocked, but I am shocked. I found out that the heater works, which is nice. Found out the heater motor or the heater fan works, which is nice. I found that out because it was on high the entire trip up here. Maybe not so nice. But yeah, that's about it. So this is the wrap-up video, and I'm going to now go forward and, well, go back to show some of the work that we did on it. My intentions were to get the water system sorted out on this. Didn't happen. The utilities all sorted out on it, the refrigerator, the stove. The stove works. You got to light it. The igniter doesn't work. I assume the oven does. There is a gas-powered or gas-fired water heater in this thing. And apparently there's a sacrificial anode in them. It reacts with the water sometimes, and it gives off a sulfur gas. We found the drain plug outside the other day and put the drain plug back in. So when I was driving down the road, for the first 15 or 20 minutes driving down the road, lots of wind coming through, windows open, and it would smell like sulfur in the cabin real bad. Reminded me of the redhead I dated. Not a good thing. We put that plug in, and that smell largely went away, but it's still there a little bit, so I'll deal with that later. The refrigerator works when you plug it into shore power, which is great. It's supposed to work on propane too, but again, the igniter on that doesn't work. So yeah, I'm gonna have to take a crash course on fixing camper utilities. We got a generator for it. Didn't put it on. I'd say we ran out of time, but the truth is I kind of procrastinated. It was a long week. Swap meet was last week and whatever else. So I got the essentials done, and we're here. And that's the important part. The rest of it I can deal with later. So here's what led up to this point. So the first time I drove the Disco Biscuit, I drove to Steel in Motion, and on the way home, the windshield wipers just dropped off. So these things are famous for that. Those are the bushings that hold the windshield wiper, tie rod, connecting rod, whatever, on. And that is the connecting rod. And that is right where it decided to stop moving. Actually, Daniel got that one on already.
Yeah, I put that one on.
So yeah, we were doing this today. Then dinner came, and here we go. So the trip home was a lot of fun. It was dark, my eyes suck, and it was raining. And I had no windshield wipers and no Rain-X. So we'll try not to do that again for Power Tour. So I'm working underneath the doghouse, getting ready to change the exhaust manifold out. And while I'm clearing my work area, I see this stuff all folded up and tucked underneath this passenger seat. Like, what in the world is that? Now, I've got some ideas, but that hose is a little long for what I'm thinking. So, and I follow it. It goes up here and it goes through a hole in the firewall. So we come out here, hunt around for it, and here it is. It was running up here. It was actually all the way down there before I pulled it out. It's got a bend in it. It goes into there. Somebody was filling the coolant tank. We figured out, Daniel and I figured out, somebody must have been filling the coolant tank from the kitchen sink while they were driving down the road. I have no words. If you followed along on the Valdez adventure, you know that the original exhaust manifolds came out shockingly easily. Like, everybody was completely stunned. And I figured lightning was never, ever, ever going to strike twice in the same place. But here we are. These all came out incredibly easily too. So I ended up going on eBay and found this good exhaust manifold. It had a buy it now price on it. It had to make an offer. I didn't even care. I just bought it right away because these things are always broken. And interestingly, Dorman actually carries these. They've got them listed in their catalog specifically for 440 motorhomes, which tells me that these are always broke. And it also told Daniel that they're always broke because he's replaced a million of them, though on small blocks. And it's always the passenger side, it seems. Well, Dorman was sold out of them. So here's the stock manifold. You can see it's cracked. You can see it was welded. And you can see that crack went all the way through into the exhaust port. That is ugly. And that thing, honestly, it leaked like it shouldn't have even had a repair done to it. So it all came out pretty easily. We're going to go get some good gaskets and put it in. We took the valve out of it, the flapper valve. So we're going to plug those ports for the flapper valve rod and let it ride. Stops from the weight of the manifold.
Yeah, it's not very strong. It was very free.
Free is good. And that's it for our automotive barbarism, at least this version of it. So the edges cleaned up pretty nicely. That is a really low spot. We don't want to clean it up anymore. So they make high temp gaskets specifically for these. The regular gaskets don't seem to do the job, but the high temp gaskets, they've got a big raised flange that comes up, and that would be the right way to do this. But we don't have time to do it the right way. So I think what we're going to do is end up filling that with like orange silicone, because you can actually rub your finger on that and catch it. That is a really bad low spot on the casting. So if we had like a 3-foot belt sander or a commercial grade one, yeah, we could sit here and whittle that down and grind it, and then it'd be fine. Or if we had time to wait the week or 10 days to get the proper gasket, we'd do that. But we don't, so we're not gonna. Those little flapper things are always a pain in the, well, they're always a pain. So fortunately, I figured that I was going to rip this one out because they're always dead, the spring is dead. Somebody had beat me to taking off the little flapper valve in it, but the rod was there, so I knocked the rod out. Got this bolt, and it was a pretty good fit, but I ended up sealing it with some of this on both ends. We're going to be using a lot of this on the gasket. Those little flapper things are always a pain in the, well, they're always a pain. So fortunately, I figured that I was going to rip this one out because they're always dead, the spring is dead. Somebody had beat me to taking off the little flapper valve in it, but the rod was there, so I knocked the rod out. Got this bolt, and it was a pretty good fit, but I ended up sealing it with some of this on both ends. We're going to be using a lot of this on the gasket surface. So that's that. gasket in a tube. It's not sexy, but it is functional. And there was that one really low spot right in there. So I think I showed that before. But yeah, I feel actually pretty good about it. Oh look, we found our misfire. Actually, I wasn't really paying attention a whole lot. I was just worried about not driving into ditches and stuff. And Daniel said he thought that it might have had a misfire. He was underneath it and looked up while I was up on top doing something, fiddling around with the gasket, and he said, "Oh, hey, you have a misfire." So this thing had been arcing, well, it burned out across the exhaust manifold. So we pulled the plug and yeah, it's dead. So, oops, there we go. So we're going to change the plugs and find a new spark plug wire. If you're coming to the south side of Atlanta for any reason, you have to stop at Summit. So we stopped at Summit. And now Summit has a scratch and dent area. So of course you gotta go through the scratch and dent area. I found a starter. It's a lightweight mini starter for a big block Mopar. And now I own a big block Mopar, so I had to get it. Basically this is just insurance that will guarantee that I do not have to stop and put a starter on my truck anywhere along power tour. So in the back of the Jeep it goes, it'll go in the wagon someplace on the trip, and then it will go on a shelf where I will find it in 6 years and forget having gotten it because I haven't used it yet. Still a bargain at twice the price. And we're credentialed. Cool. So I ended up not getting my registration in on time for the long haul stuff, but I don't really care. They're coming right past, basically coming right past our place. So we've got some stuff to do yet to button up the Disco Biscuit, and then we'll just head out tomorrow. Today was pretty much down at MIS, or AMS? Yeah, Atlanta Motor Speedway. It was pretty much just the first day of the event, auto registration, people parking, and then heading out to their hotels and restaurants. So we're going to go home and button up the biscuit and then head out tomorrow morning. Well, because nothing is ever simple or easy. So that spark plug is the one that had the worn through boot or burned through boot causing a misfire. There was one other one that was a dead cylinder. The gap was completely bridged. So we ran down to Summit today when we picked up our credentials at the Motor Speedway. Summit wasn't too far away, and picked up some spark plug shields. Really only needed on the one side. That one is actually, there's a big gap there between it, and the other ones are all cool. That one's the big issue. And then the other thing is, we've got this snazzy little shield. It bolts in under here. Flange bolts to the underside of the floor. It's a complete pain to get in and out. And you see that little hole right there. That hole is actually, I don't know if you can see it or not, it's actually worn through. It's not burned through. And there was a metallic thunking noise every time I would hit a good bump. And I think that this was vibrating against the exhaust manifold. Daniel suggested strongly just leaving it. I can't do that. So I'm a big fan of heat shields. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some Kills mat on it and use that as a buffer between the exhaust manifold and the heat shield, and then I'll reinstall the heat shield. And we got it in. So that was definitely rubbing through on the exhaust manifold. You can see that. It was hitting there. The boot is down in there. It's not a lot of extra play above the exhaust manifold, but I think that'll be okay. And then after I got it in here and started rattling around, it was still banging on the flange for the floor pan, so I stuck another piece in there after it was all screwed in, so that's not real pretty, but it works. And like I said, I'm a big fan of heat shields, so I'm happy that that's in there. Not the right wire routing for the spark plugs, also not the right boots, but you know what, it all works. And that's really all I care about at this point. It is Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday. And it's a little bit later than we wanted to get on the road. So we went down yesterday to the south side of Atlanta, down by McDonough, and picked up our credentials. And we just couldn't really see a reason to stay down there and then get in the vehicles and drive back up past home. So we're actually heading out on Tuesday. We were down there yesterday. So technically, if anybody wants to bitch about long hauling and wah. So anyway, we've covered the same amount of ground. So it's Tuesday. It's a tad later than we wanted to. Daniel and Brittany thrashed on their camper last night and got a sleeping deck built in it and did some last minute maintenance. I did some last minute maintenance, got my ignition system all buttoned up, and good Lord, the thing runs smooth. Amazingly smooth. I got in it this morning, hit the ignition, and it kicked right over immediately. So I'm really happy about that. I don't have power. The igniters in the gas stove and the refrigerator aren't working. So the gas stove's not a big deal. I can just light those with a flame, with a match. I have no idea how to do that with the refrigerator. So I'll just get a cooler. And that's it. We're about to be on the road. First casualty of the trip, and we didn't even get out of the warehouse. So as I was pulling away, I heard something dragging. The T-handle on my generator door compartment failed, and there's no safety chains on it, so it dragged the door a little bit through the gravel. And then while I was messing around with it, the T-handle intermittently locks and doesn't lock. So I'm just gonna deal with that later. I took the door off. I'm gonna stash the door back in the warehouse, move a couple of things out of there. Keep the toolbox in there though, strapped down good. But yeah, at least it didn't happen going down the highway. I can salvage the door now, but had it happened anywhere else, the door would be a distant memory. All right, well, we've gone 60, maybe 80 miles since I filled up, and this tank, you can't fill it up because there's a kink in the hose. I tried to fix it, it broke something anyway. So I really haven't figured out the mileage, but I topped it off until it started puking gas out at the last stop. And now we're at 15 gallons at this stop. And if we went 80 miles, I'll let you do the math. This is going to be an expensive trip.
We went 80 miles.
Nope. Daniel just said that we went 82 miles. So 15 gallons roughly and 82 miles. Ow! So driving impressions of the camper. It's actually not bad. It's amazing how long or how far a cracked exhaust manifold will go to make your driving experience miserable. So this actually wasn't too bad. We got the exhaust manifold fixed. These tires suck out loud. So yeah, new tires are on my short list of things to do. We did the math on the gas, and it looks like I'm getting about 5.5 miles per gallon, which is ridiculous. But Valdez, my other camper, I don't know, I never figured out how much that got. It feels like it got more, but it made up for it in oil consumption, or just spewing oil, or dumping it underground. So we're rolling into Columbia now. We're on the interstate. Because we got such a late start, we decided to take the interstates. That was the most direct route. But I guess this year Power Tour is going on mainly back roads. So we're going to be doing that tomorrow. We'll get there tonight. We'll find a spot to camp. Daniel and Brittany are going to stay in their camper van. Well, not camper van, their four-wheel drive van. They made a bed deck for it last night for their air mattress. So, with the windows open, this is actually a pretty quiet drive. With the windows closed, it's very quiet, but there's a lot of heat. I'm not sure if the heater is stuck in the on position or not. So that's one more thing I'll have to work on figuring out. Overall, it's decent for what it is. It really is. But it's just not as much fun to drive as Valdez, the 61 Chevy C30 camper. So even all the problems that I had with that one, that's definitely my favorite. So this will make a good residence for a while. Valdez is going to get used for things like this in the future. We made it! Relatively drama-free at that. Ugh. Dogs are here. Actually, the dogs were going bonkers as we were pulling into the facility because they wanted to get out and see all the hot rods. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it is the God's honest truth. As soon as we pulled in and were waiting in line to get into the venue, they were standing at the windows looking out and whimpering and whining and wanting to get in. So as soon as we parked, they were standing at the door waiting to get out. So I'm gonna let my dogs drag me around the show for a while. And every Gen Xer is gonna love that. At least every Gen X car guy. If you don't, and if you didn't want one of those things at some point in your life, yeah, you need to turn in your man card. This is just too good. And obviously I'm a sucker for vintage campers. I always have been, and I'm really not sure why. But interior's nice. So these came with red, blue, and yellow scallops on it from the factory. So the guy didn't paint it to match the truck. A lot of people like vintage campers.
Very cool, man.
All right. And this is the man who owns it. Tell us your name real quick and where you're from.
Colin Kitchens, Milner, Georgia.
Oh, cool. You're from Georgia.
Yes.
Sweet. All right. You told me the story about the camper a little bit, but go ahead and tell everybody about the camper.
It's a 1973 D200 with a 1962 Dreamer cab-over camper on it. It's all original. Belonged to my grandfather.
That's very cool. You told me a little bit about the chassis under this thing and the story about why this truck is sitting under the camper right now.
This truck was actually specially ordered for the camper to haul it. It's actually a 1-ton suspension. The reason it's not a dually is it's got to get between the jack stands.
Cool. What transmission's in it? What engine's in it?
It's a 400 big block with what transmission? 717 transmission.
727 trans.
355 gear in the rear.
Oh, that's nice. That makes going down the road a lot smoother and a lot easier and a have thirsty.
Yes, I just don't have overdrive.
Yeah. So how long have you had it?
About 15 years.
Cool. You said that it's all original. You've done a little bit of work to it, just
restored the interior. There was some rust in the floorboard from where it had been sitting. We did have to rebuild the engine from where it sat for so long. Had a lot of overheating issues with it till we rebuilt it. Other than that, it's all original. Just hit 100,000 on it a couple weeks ago. About a month ago. About a month ago now.
Have you taken it on a lot of camping trips?
I've taken it on 2 camping trips since I've had it, and then I started with all the overheating issues with it, and ended up parking the truck for about 7-8 years till last year.
Okay, so what'd you do to combat the overheating issues?
Pulled the engine, took it completely apart, and for about 45 minutes I pressure washed the inside best I could, and I got soaked in the process.
Yes.
And then my brother, the mechanic, put everything back together. We added a transmission cooler and an oil cooler. Pulled as much heat out of the engine block as possible, and we had an issue since.
Very, very cool. Are you guys staying in it for power tour, or are you just driving it to the venues?
Nope, we're staying in it.
Excellent, man. That's very cool. Obviously, since it was your grandpa's, you've got no plans on getting rid of it.
No, not at all.
Cool. You being the brother, are you going to fight him for it?
Make sure it keeps it in the family at least.
Very good. Well, cool, man. I'm going to get a shot of the engine and the interior, and thank you very much for your time.
Yes, sir. Not a problem. Enjoy.
Thanks, man. So up front here, we got the big block. We've got toolbox, which is home built out of wood. So you know that was Grandpa working on it, because that's what old guys always did back then. So that's cool. Glad to see that he didn't repaint it. Something right about original worn paint. He did recover the seat because it was dry rotted and dead. He repainted the top of the dash because it was a little bit of rusty. He repainted the door panels a brighter white to match the camper. And then but the jump seats are all original. So it's real nice to see a original truck all in the family. And he's actually using it. Gotta love that. Retro is always cool, but it seems like 70s themes are really coming on strong now, and I'm not sure why I like them. It's not because I grew up in the 70s. Actually, it really isn't. It's a throwback, and I didn't like any of it back then. I liked Tri-5 Chevys and 32 Fords when I was a kid, and didn't really pay any attention to the trendy stuff. I liked going through old hot rod magazines from the 50s and 60s, so all the stuff that was going on in the 70s and 80s when I was young just didn't appeal to me that much, but now I like the throwback stuff, and this paint job is definitely, it's simple, it's plain, and it's throwback, and I dig it. I also like the tunnel ram with the velocity stacks. 383, and it is so nice to see one that has made it past the restoration craze. Well, not craze, it's just nice to see some that aren't restored. It's nice to see things that are original and used and loved on, and maybe abused a little bit. Nobody's restoring $60,000 restored cars. I don't know if this guy's abusing it either, but it's here, so you know he's enjoying it. And I don't see lawn chairs out around it, so he's really enjoying it. I really dig the retro paint on the chrome bumper vet. So that's cool to see. And this thing just looks badass. Here we have Daniel in his natural habitat underneath a vehicle in a parking lot.
Yeah, it's typical.
So, what's the deal?
The transpan is nothing out of the ordinary. Just fluids that want to be back in the earth.
Okay, cool. So what Daniel has going is a weeping bolt at the transpan. And by weeping, I mean like a drip every second.
It's short.
Yeah. So we're not sure if the case is cracked or if it's weeping past the threads in the bolt or whatever. But it's very...
There shouldn't be fluid at the threads.
No, there shouldn't be, actually. So I had some Teflon tape in the toolbox. So he's going to try wrapping the bolt in Teflon tape and see if maybe that helps, because when he was screwing the bolt back in last time, there was like a sweet spot where it stopped dripping, and he went past that sweet spot and it was dripping again. So we'll see how it goes. So that was our adventure for the last couple of days. I noticed that I made some reference to the amount of heat that was in the driver's seat there. Wondered if the heater was on or if the motor was stuck on. As it turns out, it wasn't stuck on, it was just on. I hadn't paid any attention to the heater controls. So the heater was on high, and the fan was on high. So once I got that turned off, it would actually cooled off real nice in there. We're gonna head out tomorrow morning. Not sure exactly what time we're gonna get up and leave. We talked to some guys who left Atlanta early this morning, and they didn't get there before we did. We left like at noon or 12:30. Now we took highways for a bit of it, but we got there about 4 to the venue, and other people were getting there between 4 and 4:30 that left Atlanta early. So the route that they've got published, the official route, is really long. So we're probably gonna head out of here early tomorrow morning and just head to the next venue, because we'd like to get there about noon, set up and chill out for the day and see all the event and see all the cars and everything. So we'll talk about that tonight and figure out what we're going to do. Hope you guys enjoyed it. This is the part where I'm supposed to say like and subscribe and all the other stuff, but yeah, I'll be doing power tour uploads and keeping an eye on this thing and keeping an eye on Daniel and Brittany and their car or their truck. So that's it. Have a good night.